is the minute. A man is in the hospital with life-threatening injuries after being shot by San Jose police. It happened while officers were responding to a call about someone firing a gun in the Colmar Drive yesterday afternoon. No officers were injured. SJPD will hold a press conference at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi has died in a helicopter crash in northwestern Iran due to bad weather. That crash also killed the country's foreign minister. The vice president will assume the presidency, with a new election expected within 50 days. Teaching assistants, tutors, and other student workers at UC Santa Cruz are planning to strike today. They say it's in response to the university's crackdown on pro-Palestinian demonstrators. The school says the planned strike is illegal. Bay Area's only primetime newscast at 8 and 9 p.m. on the all-new Pix Plus 44 Cable 12. I'm Ryan Yamamoto. This is the Mayor.
Well, we are coming out of a beautiful weekend here in the Bay Area. Lots of things happened throughout the Bay. Of course, Beta Breakers was beautiful for that forecast. Sunny skies into the afternoon hours. And we're seeing the same as we head into this week. Small day-to-day changes. It's more summer-like as we kick off this week with 70s and 80s in our inland areas. We'll see small day-to-day changes in the forecast for us. But better yet, let's dive straight into our Monday forecast. Cooler and cloudier along the coast, but we'll see plenty of sunshine into this afternoon throughout the Santa Clara Valley with 70s in the forecast for us today. If you live in areas like San Jose stretching up into Fremont, it cools down just a little bit the more north you go, but then it warms up the more east we go in areas like Antioch and Brentwood. Nice and warm for us this afternoon with 80s in the forecast today. Let's head all the way over across the Bay Bridge into the heart of San Francisco, where we're also expecting 60s this afternoon. Along that coastline, it cools down just a smidge more into communities like Stinson Beach, and all the way up into the North Bay we go. Beautiful, warm, dry weather for us as we head into this afternoon. It will be a little bit gustier, though, as we head into the afternoon hours. Advancing the clock all the way to dinner time, even close to 3 o'clock, we're noticing that onshore wind with gusts anywhere up to around 30 miles per hour. Notice how that continues to be the same trend into the evening hours tonight. Breezy along the coast, lighter winds in our inland areas, but let's take a look at the next 7 days. Lots of sunshine in the forecast for us, especially if you live anywhere from San Francisco across the Bay Bridge into Oakland, with just some partly cloudy skies, mostly in the morning hours. It'll be warm, it will be dry as we head all along our week's forecast in our inland East Bay, but notice how these 80s turn into 60s by the weekend. Like I said, small day-to-day changes are in the forecast for us. Cooler conditions by the weekend, and we'll also notice that in areas like the North Bay all the way over into San Jose. Upper 70s for now, turning into upper 60s as early as Saturday, averaging out into the 70s by early next week.
Well, cities, counties, and states across the country are waiting for the Supreme Court to rule on a case that would allow them to clear homeless encampments, even if there's nowhere else for those people to go. San Francisco city leaders have been fighting for the right to clear out encampments as a matter of health and safety. New numbers show the city's homeless population now stands at just over 8,300. That's up 7% from 2022. The good news, it appears more people are in shelters, but the number of people living on the streets or in tents dropped 13%. The so-called point-in-time count is done every 2 years and determines how much funding the city gets from the federal government. Lauren Toms went along with a man who's in charge of cleaning up encampments, a job he admits few people would want. Lauren got to see how these crews try to approach the difficult task of throwing out someone's possessions with dignity, an example of the best outcome.
This encampment in the Mission is about to be torn down. And while to most people it may look like another case of cardboard boxes being used by unhoused people to camp out, to Daryl Dilworth, it's a clear sign of improvement.
6 months ago, both sides of the streets was lined with structures like the one that you see up ahead, and tents.
It's a daunting task and one of the least desirable jobs in the city. The smells alone would turn off most instantly, but Dilworth sees his worth in the process.
And they're doing work that other workers throughout the city, they refuse to do because it's so tedious. You're dealing with hazardous materials, you're dealing with human feces, you're dealing with urine, you're dealing with unknown substances, needles, and not many city employees really want to deal with that.
A native San Franciscan, he's on a mission to not only restore the city's streets to the beauty beneath, but provide dignity to the process. That hasn't always been the case.
They would just come and tell you get the out and just throw all your there, just like no respect, no communication. We were like at war with them.
The encampment being cleared here belonged to John DeBella. He spent most of his life unhoused in the Mission, but today accepted housing offered by part of the multi-agency team tasked with clearing the area. This process of clearing encampments has seen a huge overhaul in the last 5 years, but remains a controversial process at the center of a Supreme Court battle over who can legally live on the street.
You know, as long as they respect us, then we respect them, and we just clean up real quick and go. And if we have to, we'll just come back later or something.
Rewind 72 hours ago, and flyers like these were being posted alerting those in the area when this cleaning would take place. But each experience is unique, Dilworth says. Here, an individual with mental illness is resistant to the process, an encounter that's becoming more common as they carefully comb through items both cherished and soiled.
These are the times when we get blamed for taking personal items, and this would be the personal items that they're talking about that we're throwing away. Stuff that we deemed unsalvageable. Like I said, soil with feces, and obviously he's been there for quite a while.
This situation was on the verge of escalating, but quickly dampened when a firefighter steps in.
I'm gonna make some phone calls, and I'm gonna see if we can get you in a better spot, okay?
The man accepted housing and services, a test of how this process is intended to work, and a rare case of added red tape having a positive effect.
It makes me feel happy because we're making positive progress. We're not just moving individuals. We're offering them services. We're offering them a chance to get out of their situation into a better situation. And it gives us an opportunity in the process to actually clean and sanitize the streets as well.
Tossing soiled items and policies behind to make room for cleaner times ahead.
The South Bay's largest water agency discussed a new law that would ban homeless encampments along creeks in the Santa Clara Valley Water District. And they say it's become an environmental hazard with a growing number of camps polluting waterways like the Guadalupe River. Campers could face fines of up to $500 and 30 days in jail. A final vote is expected next month. San Francisco Mayor London Breed officially kicked off her re-election campaign. She's been in office for 6 years now, is now pitching herself to voters with a focus on crime and safety, as well as revitalizing downtown.
What we are trying to do is keep up the momentum of the work that we have already done to get to this point. We didn't just clean up the streets for APEC. We're not just cleaning up the streets for a re-election campaign. We are making sure that we're doing everything we can, as we always have, to lead the city, to manage through challenging times.
The mayor has a lot of competition in her bid for re-election. Notable candidates include former supervisor and interim mayor Mark Farrell, Board of Supervisors President Aaron Peskin, Supervisor Asha Safai, and philanthropist Daniel Lurie. Well, today's mayoral debate has been canceled after Breed, Lurie, and Peskin dropped out of that debate. It was supposed to be hosted by the nonprofit Together SF. Mayor Breed says the organization has troubling ties with former interim mayor Mark Farrell. In a statement on its website, the nonprofit called the three candidates' decisions to pull out of the debate political theatrics. Well, there's serious concerns that Oakland is headed towards another budget crisis. The projected deficit now stands at $177 million. Demonstrators were out in the city yesterday worried the multi-million-dollar budget shortfall would mean cuts to public safety programs. And while the city has not said how they plan on making up that shortfall, demonstrators told Don Lynn that any cut to public safety would set the city back more than any deficit.
Show us the budget! Show us the budget!
Critics of Mayor Sheng Tao say they worry the deficit will worsen public safety.
We are concerned about Oakland today and Oakland tomorrow.
They're not alone. Some fear the large deficit could result in less police officers in their neighborhood.
The police officers that are usually here at the lake during the busy season are doing overtime. So if they cut that, then there's a good chance we won't have those resources.
Leanne Alameda is the chair of Lake Merritt Community Alliance. She and neighbors often have to call for officers to open up lanes on Lakeshore Avenue and nearby streets. On recent weekends, large parties along the lake led to drivers double and triple parking. Some people even parked on the grass.
Emergency vehicles couldn't get through. We saw a fire truck get stuck on Bellevue, couldn't get through because of all the illegal parking. It was completely backed up. People couldn't leave or come home.
Neighbors say some of the parking issues have led to confrontations like this. Leanne says many city workers won't come to address these problems without police escort due to safety concerns.
But I'm really worried if we go into this budget deficit and they decide to pull the resources from the lake, we are going to be back where we were during the pandemic.
She's referring to this mass shooting on Lakeshore Avenue and other rowdy parties. While the mayor says she will prioritize public safety, there are concerns she will cut back on police overtime.
It felt like we are at rock bottom. So if anything that have to do with security is cut, it's gonna just get worse.
Baba Afalabi says rampant car break-ins forced him to close his downtown sports bar in March. He says customers stopped coming and he ran out of money.
You pay everybody before you pay yourself. There's been moments that I have to drive Uber just to pay out my staff. That's how hard it's been.
As for Leanne, she admits there are no easy solutions and any cuts will hurt the city's progress.
I don't know how they're going to, I mean, it is a very stark budget deficit.
Well, we contacted the mayor's office for a response and are waiting to hear back. Still ahead on CBS News Bay Area, helping improve mental health with the power of AI. The Bay Area teen using tech to lead the way after experiencing years of grief. Plus, bringing new life to a community staple in San Francisco's Japantown. Fundraising efforts now being celebrated as a symbol of survival. And drowning deaths on the rise in America, how disruptions due to the COVID-19 pandemic could be a factor.
Beautiful dry weather for us. That's the forecast this week with sunshine felt anywhere from San Francisco across the Bay Bridge over into Oakland. Watch our daytime highs though. Day by day, we have small changes in the forecast, kicking off with just in our inland areas, turning into 70s by Thursday, 60s into this weekend. But speaking of 60s, we're actually going to be sitting close to that all week long, just along our coastline, upper 50s and lower 60s, kind of back and forth based on if you're closer to Half Moon Bay, Pacifica, all the way up into areas like Bodega Bay too. Here we go along the North Bay though, 80s by tomorrow, 60s by the weekend. We kind of have a taste of everything.
Well, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we have an incredible story about a teenager on the peninsula who turned her grief from losing her father into a calling to help others take care of their mental health. Sean Chitness has more on how she's using AI to help more people access the resources and the treatment that they need.
Spend a day with Charlotte Rosario and you'll be amazed at all she can do at just the age of 17. A walk around the neighborhood with her dog is a nice break for the junior in high school who created a platform to improve access to mental health resources.
I really want to make it a lot easier and faster for people to get that critical help that they might need.
Search Mental Health uses artificial intelligence to find services and treatment options near you based on what you're dealing with in that moment. The more detail you provide, the better response the AI will give someone in need.
My dad actually passed away by suicide when I was just 12 years old. And through that experience, I really had to learn how to heal and move forward by actually leaning into mental health advocacy.
Charlotte was in 7th grade. The pandemic had just started, and middle school was a dark place for this young girl trying to process such a devastating loss.
I remember seeing a girl in the mirror who was scared, ashamed, confused, and lost.
She would quickly realize how many barriers there are to mental health support. Beyond the stigma and intimidation many face, especially students, there were so many resources available that people just weren't aware of.
I always think about my dad and all of the people that I've met in my community over the years who I know have struggled with their own mental health challenges or suicide loss, and I keep their stories in mind because that's really what drives these projects and what has driven Search Mental Health.
Even a talented teen who came up with an impressive platform and does the coding to keep the site running has to find ways to step aside from all that she's taking on, choosing to draw with whatever free time she may find, reminding herself about the important ways we can all process loss and deal with our own grief.
Always, try to be open with each other and actively support one another.
And it all starts with talking more about it. So Charlotte plans to keep spreading the word about Search Mental Health, while also finding time to enjoy her summer break.
And Charlotte hopes people across California can use the platform soon. It's calibrated to help you find resources based on what county you live in. Well, as we celebrate AAPI Heritage Month, a building in the heart of San Francisco's Japantown is poised to undergo a major facelift after a community fundraising effort. Proponents say it is a symbol of survival as other relics have disappeared during decades of urban renewal. Kenny Choi got a look at what is once was, now is, and what is will be for generations.
Diane Matsuda vividly remembers when she would come to Kinmon Gakuen as a child every week.
It was a place where you learned about community. It was a place where you learned about your cultural heritage, and I think that was very important for us.
The San Francisco native attended Japanese language classes every Saturday morning. So did generations of Japanese Americans before her when the language school opened in 1911.
It was always a lively venue for many, many people. And then World War II happened and everyone had to leave.
Kinmon Gakuen, translated into English, Golden Gate Institute, became a processing center as Japanese American citizens were forcibly sent to internment camps starting in 1942.
In exchange for giving their family name, they were given an ID number. They were no longer humans. They were literally a piece of government property.
In a sense, the building is a kind of a symbol.
SF State Professor Masahiko Minami, who specializes in Japanese language and cross-cultural studies, says the racist policies of the San Francisco School Board mandating in 1906 that children of Chinese, Korean, and Japanese descent attend an Oriental school in Chinatown led to a massive effort by the Japanese community.
That triggers the establishment of Kinmon Gakuen. The Japanese people gathered together and set up the Kinmon Gakuen.
Early educators taught Japanese and English to newer immigrants. 2031 Bush Street became a central gathering place for the community. But after World War II, many parts of Japantown started to fade away.
When redevelopment came through and ripped apart a lot of the homes and businesses in Japantown, we were lucky that this building was spared.
Matsuda and fellow board members have secured city and state grants of $10 million to turn a dilapidated auditorium into a 21st century performing arts center. They say more is needed to modernize the rest of the historic building, recently landmarked by the city.
Rekishi o mirai ni means bringing history to our future.
Sifting through old pictures reminds them of Kinmon Gakuen's past.
It's really important for future generations to understand what struggles and what challenges our Issei grandparents had to build this building and what their vision was for the future. And we want to continue to keep the vision of community alive.
It's bringing new life into an old part of Japantown for the next generation.
And the school board members expect a groundbreaking in construction to begin sometime this year or next year. Classes are offered every Saturday and will continue during the makeover. And a bakery in Japantown is celebrating a huge milestone, 50 years in business. Yasukochi's Sweet Shop opened in December of 1971. And if you aren't familiar with it, they're most famous for delicious coffee crunch cake. The man who started it all continues his legacy, handing it down to his grandson.
I've always said I want to open a bakery in Japantown.
Why?
Why? Because there was no bakery in Japantown.
Grandpa didn't have any of his kids want to do it, so we skipped a generation.
Good to see Moses doing well there. Sharon Chin has the rest of the sweet story. You can watch it right here on our newscast later today at 5 p.m. And you can watch our hour-long special, Roots and Resilience, at an AAPI celebration this Friday at 4 p.m. on KPIX and streaming right here on CBS News Bay Area. Still ahead, new numbers show drowning deaths on the rise post-pandemic, with summer right around the corner. A doctor with Stanford will join us with what factors could be to blame. And a reminder, you can stream CBS News Bay Area wherever, whenever. Catch all of our live newscasts, plus news and weather updates throughout the day. Find us on the free CBS News app or on Pluto TV.
weekend here in the Bay Area, and as we kick off this work week, we're staying nice and dry. We're staying low in those rain chances as we head into this work week's forecast. A little bit breezier into the afternoon hours like we'll notice today, but the weather is warm and it is dry all throughout the bay. Wind gusts along our shoreline anywhere up to around 25 to 30 miles per hour are expected close to around that 3 o'clock hour as many of us are wrapping up work and school. It'll be a bit breezy in case you want to head out to the park, so just keep that in mind, but at least the weather is beautiful and definitely warm too in our inland areas. We're expecting 70s today, just like yesterday, with 50s and 60s along our coastline. Cooler and breezier along the coast near Pacifica, but those winds start to die down the more inland we go. Antioch today topping off at 80 degrees. Let's head over to San Francisco real fast, where we had beta breakers over the weekend and it was beautiful, it was mild, and we have 60s in the forecast once again. All the way north along the Golden Gate Bridge, a similar trend, 60s turning into 70s from Santa Rosa up into Windsor. You continue to move north, suddenly we hit the 80s in areas like Ukiah all the way over into Lakeport.
In Danville, young kids participated in a skills camp created by a local high school football star. 1 in 26 people will develop epilepsy at some point in their life. That includes Marco Jones, one of the most coveted college recruits in the country. And as John Ramos reports, growing up there were questions about whether he would even be able to have and live a normal life.
They say that sports reveal a person's character, but nothing builds character like having to face a little adversity early on in life. If you don't know the name Marco Jones, you can be sure that every major college football team in the country does. He plays linebacker and tight end for San Ramon Valley High and has offers from more than 30 colleges, including schools like Michigan, Alabama, USC, and Texas. But on this day, it was his team on the field. Welcome to the Marco Jones Skills Camp on his home field at SRV. Players and coaches recruited by Marco put kids ages 8 to 13 through a range of activities, from speed and agility drills to a spirited game of dodgeball, all under the watchful eye of the camp's founder.
He's a big inspiration. I mean, I've known him for a while. He's one of the people I look up to.
He has 5 a.m. workouts that he does. It's just amazing. Most people don't do that, you know. He's really dedicated.
But as bright as Marco's future appears, it didn't start out that way. At 3 years old, he was diagnosed with epilepsy, suffering grand mal seizures at an alarming rate.
It was a very traumatic experience for my wife and I, especially. I mean, you know, waking up when he's 3 years old to him having a grand mal seizure is not what we anticipated.
It's scary, and it's not being able to help your kid is maybe one of the worst things, worst feelings.
But they did find help, and at age 13, the problem cleared up, as it does for about 70% of patients. And while most of the kids were able-bodied, the camp was dedicated to a program called Helmets for Helmets, using autographed sports equipment to raise money for kids with epilepsy.
You know, luckily I grew out of it, but there's some people that aren't as lucky to grow out of it. And so it's a foundation that, you know, gives helmets, soft helmets to kids with epilepsy to protect them from, you know, if they have a seizure, that, you know, it protects their head if they fall.
Marco has a big decision ahead of him. Where he plays next will affect every aspect of his future. And it is a healthy future that his parents are thrilled to see.
It's surreal. My wife and I often pinch ourselves like, is this for real? I mean, like, we're lucky that, first of all, he's an unbelievable human being. I'm watching him walk around here with a smile on his face the whole time, watching kids have fun. It makes whatever decision he makes easy. I mean, he can't go wrong.
And his success is only increasing his ability to inspire others.
And now if they see that someone like Marco that everybody knows, oh, I had epilepsy too, it makes it maybe feel a little bit more normal.
The path to professional football is a tough one, and there are no guarantees. But if it's true that overcoming adversity makes a person stronger, Marco Jones has a leg up on the competition.
Well, the Helmets for Helmets Foundation was created by a Cal Bears assistant coach whose son is dealing with epilepsy. For more information about that program, there's a link on our website at kpix.com. Well, the CDC has just come out with a new report on how drowning is on the rise post-COVID. That's between 2020 and 2022. Death rates were significantly higher, especially in children. Every year, approximately 4,000 deaths are caused by drownings in the United States, and studies show that more than half of U.S. adults have never taken a swimming lesson. And joining me now is Dr. Ryan Ribera, clinical assistant professor at Stanford Health. Now, doctor, this is being called an urgent public health issue. So what exactly is to blame for the rise in drownings?
Yeah, well, definitely an urgent public health issue. As you mentioned, about 4,000 people a year typically, and we're up about 10% after really being pretty steady for over a decade. So it's a very sharp increase. Now, as to what's causing it, it's a little bit hard to say. There's definitely, I think, a higher increase amongst minority populations. When we're looking at this recently released CDC data, it's grown 30% among the Black population, 24.8% among Hispanic populations. Now, that's a disparity that's been noted for a while, probably due to differences in swimming skills, maybe exacerbated by the pandemic just because of reduced access to things like swimming lessons and public pools during this period of time.
You touched on who is most at risk. How much is it about having access to the pools and having access to, having swim lessons?
Definitely swimming skills is one of the biggest associations for risk of drowning. So definitely having access to pools and swimming lessons is a big deal. Generally speaking, also preschool populations are hugely at risk. It's the leading cause of death amongst preschoolers, and most of those drownings happen in pools. So families with pools in the backyard with young children at home are a big at-risk population. I'd say the other one is adults who combine water with substance use. People underestimate the risks of water generally, and if you don't have your full mental capacities around, it's easier for tragedy to strike.
And we know it's starting to get hot outside, starting to warm up, and summer's right around the corner. So what should people do to keep themselves and their families safe?
Yeah, as we've touched on, building swimming skills is hugely important, whether through lessons or, parent-facilitated training. If you've got a pool, keeping it completely enclosed with fencing is really critical, combined potentially with a pool cover. For outdoor swimming, of course, life jackets save lives. And then whenever you've got children, especially in the pool, having a responsible and capable adult with eyes on the water at all times. If you look in the movies and TVs, drownings are very violent and dramatic. That's not how it is in real life. They're very quick, they're silent. And so if you let your guard down, tragedy can strike very quickly.
Yeah, paying attention is always key. So Dr. Ribera from Stanford Healthcare, thanks for joining us. Always good information.
Thanks for having me.
And coming up in our next half hour in CBS News Bay Area, a stop sign hanging over an intersection where a traffic light should be. The rampant problem that forced Oakland to get rid of the signals altogether, and why a permanent fix may not be so easy. Plus,
why are more people turning to KPIX Late Night? 2 reasons. Sarah and Stephen. The Late News with Sarah Donchie. Then The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. Back with all new episodes.
Really?
2 shows you'll want to spend the night with.
Then go to sleep knowing you won at TV. What?
Record it, stream it, watch it live. The Late News and the all-new Late Show. Weeknights starting at 11 on KPIX.
I'm Ryan Yamamoto. This is The Minute. A federal judge has moved to reopen the sentencing of the man convicted of attacking Paul Pelosi due to a court error. David DePape was sentenced to 30 years in prison, but the judge didn't offer him a chance to speak during his sentencing. A new hearing is scheduled for later this month. A mayoral debate in San Francisco set for today has been canceled. Mayor Breed, Board of Supervisors President Aaron Peskin, and local nonprofit leader Daniel Lurie all pulled out of the debate. Nonprofit Together SF was supposed to host the event. They called the move political theatrics. A dramatic rescue along the Sonoma coast. The county sheriff sent a helicopter to a cliff off Highway 1 yesterday morning after a driver went over the edge. First, they found the car, then the victim over 100 yards away. The person is in critical condition, but amazingly is expected to survive. I'm Ryan Yamamoto. This is The Minute.
Well, we are coming out of a beautiful weekend here in the Bay Area. Lots of things happened throughout the Bay. Of course, Bader Breakers was beautiful for that forecast. Sunny skies into the afternoon hours. And we're seeing the same as we head into this week. Small day-to-day changes. It's more summer-like as we kick off this week with 70s and 80s in our inland areas. We'll see small day-to-day changes in the forecast for us. But better yet, let's dive straight into our Monday forecast. Cooler and cloudier along the coast, but we'll see plenty of sunshine into this afternoon throughout the Santa Clara Valley with 70s in the forecast for us today. If you live in areas like San Jose stretching up into Fremont, it cools down just a little bit the more north you go, but then it warms up the more east we go in areas like Antioch and Brentwood. Nice and warm for us this afternoon with 80s in the forecast today. Let's head all the way over across the Bay Bridge into the heart of San Francisco, where we're also expecting 60s this afternoon. Along that coastline, it cools down just a smidge more into communities like Stinson Beach, and all the way up into the North Bay we go. Beautiful, warm, dry weather for us as we head into this afternoon. It will be a little bit gustier, though, as we head into the afternoon hours. Advancing the clock all the way to dinner time, even close to 3 o'clock, we're noticing that onshore wind with gusts anywhere up to around 30 miles per hour. Notice how that continues to be the same trend into the evening hours tonight. Breezy along the coast, lighter winds in our inland areas, but let's take a look at the next 7 days. Lots of sunshine in the forecast for us, especially if you live anywhere from San Francisco across the Bay Bridge into Oakland with just some partly cloudy skies, mostly in the morning hours. It'll be warm, it will be dry as we head all along our week's forecast in our inland East Bay, but notice how these 80s turn into 60s by the weekend. Like I said, small day-to-day changes are in the forecast for us. Cooler conditions by the weekend, and we'll also notice that in areas like the North Bay all the way over into San Jose. Upper 70s for now, turning into upper 60s as early as Saturday, averaging out into the 70s by early next week.
Well, it's a sight that would definitely make you do a double take, a stop sign hanging overhead where a traffic light would normally be in Oakland. Our Don Lynn noticed it while just driving through the intersection on East 12th Street and 16th Avenue in the San Antonio district, so he did some digging. As it turns out, the city removed the traffic lights altogether and replaced them with four-way stop signs after months of people stealing copper from them and tampering with an electrical box. Neighbors tell DAW the city can't fix this problem until it deals with another one.
Neighbors say the stop sign is a sign and a reflection of the city's condition. They say the city's inability to clear a homeless encampment next to the intersection is leading to this kind of issue. A drive on the busy East 12th Street, you'll come to this high-hanging stop sign above the road. Neighbors say city workers replaced the traffic lights with four-way stop signs in the last week.
It's just telling us that the city is giving up on us.
Courtesy of Google Earth, this was how the intersection looked before. But neighbors say those lights haven't worked in months. They were either blinking red or completely out.
This is a brand new solution to a problem that's taken many forms here.
Mason Young lives near the intersection. He believes the stop signs are better than non-working traffic lights, which he blamed for this crash that sent a truck into the fence of a repair shop.
We got to stop just putting Band-Aids on things, although, you know, a Band-Aid's better than bleeding out.
The city did try to fix the traffic light at least a few times, but once they fix it, normally within a week or so, it will go out again.
Tamley owns the corner auto repair shop, been here for over 25 years. He and neighbors blame the problem on repeated copper thefts. Also, they point out homeless people are stealing power from city electrical boxes. As you can see, someone is running a wire from this box to an RV. A city spokesman says they try to put heavy cement blocks on top of the boxes, but people just drag them out. The city says when people illegally connected cables to the boxes, they knocked out the traffic lights.
If you really want to fix the stop sign, I think you really have to clean up this homeless encampment.
That's easier said than done. The encampment stretches about 3 blocks on East 12th Street. The city tried to clear it out for the past 5 years, but it keeps coming back and gets bigger.
Many businesses already closed down on East 12, and I don't know how long we're gonna be here, because once they move to outside of the sidewalk, we will be gone.
Mason hopes the city will find housing for those living in the encampment before more businesses and neighbors are forced out.
I want to live here, and I love this neighborhood, and I love how diverse it is, but it affects me in the way that all of my family and relatives that don't live in the area, that don't understand it all, they're like, you're gonna get shot. And I can't say, no, I'm not, there's no gunshots, because there are.
The city says the stop signs are temporary. No timeline as to when they can put the traffic lights back up. It sounds like they're trying to figure out what to do with the encampment first.
And the city tells DAW the electrical box tampering also caused streetlight outages. They have run wires overhead for streetlights, but if you ever notice they aren't working, you can report it by calling 311. Up next, San Francisco's Asian American community has often been overlooked in city politics. We're going to introduce you to community members forcing local leaders to pay attention.
Beautiful dry weather for us. That's the forecast this week, with sunshine felt anywhere from San Francisco across the Bay Bridge over into Oakland. Watch our daytime highs though. Day by day, we have small changes in the forecast, kicking off with just in our inland areas, turning into 70s by Thursday, 60s into this weekend. But speaking of 60s, we're actually going to be sitting close to that all week long, just along our coastline. Upper 50s and lower 60s, kind of back and forth based on if you're closer to Half Moon Bay, Pacifica, all the way up into areas like Bodega Bay too. Here we go along the North Bay though, 80s by tomorrow, 60s by the weekend. We kind of have a taste of everything.
In San Francisco, Asian Americans make up 33.7% of the population. And despite representing 1/3 of the city, The group was never really considered an important part of the political landscape, but that all changed in 2022 when the Asian American voting bloc woke up and decided to flex their muscle at the ballot box. And today we're looking at two issues that sparked this awakening and how politicians have taken notice.
When Lily Ho walks through San Francisco's Chinatown, she sees power in numbers.
The API community is 38% of the population of San Francisco. So if it's not important, it would be a really big problem.
And when hate became part of the problem for the AAPI community, it was Lily and other community members who became part of the solution. Especially during the rise of attacks on elderly Asian seniors.
It was anger, it was frustration, hopelessness, it was shock. How can this even happen?
At the time, the community felt their concerns were being ignored by then District Attorney Chesa Boudin.
Nobody's representing the victims.
They believe was not doing enough to protect them.
It was outrageous that we were seeing it and then allowing it to happen.
And in 2022, the power of the Asian vote led the charge to recall the former DA. And that was just the beginning, because during the same year, that same voting bloc of Asian Americans, frustrated with the direction of San Francisco's education system,
actually insulted the entire Chinese community.
Sent a clear message by recalling 3 members of the school board.
Education and public safety were two things that the API community rallied behind. What happened was we succeeded in winning historical recalls against 4 elected officials.
Han Lee covers both the AAPI community and now politics for the SF Standard. He says the school board and district attorney recalls changed the political landscape, forcing City Hall to take notice.
This community has become increasingly outspoken and also influential politically.
Candidates from Mayor London Breed to those looking to win her seat at City Hall, you can easily spot them at Asian American functions courting the Asian American vote. And behind the scenes, their campaign teams have become more diverse.
It's very intentional that they will look for Chinese-speaking staffers who are familiar with the community to do the community outreach.
Other candidates are taking it even one step further.
For
example, like Danny Sauter, who's running for District 3 Supervisor, which includes Chinatown, right? He's learning Cantonese for years, and now in some of the campaign events or political debate, he's showing off his Cantonese speaking skill.
As for Lily, helping to organize the AAPI vote may be an awakening of her own. This past March, she recently won an elected position on the Democratic County Central Committee.
There are still a lot of voters in the API community that aren't engaged, that aren't voting, that aren't registered to vote.
Inspired to step into the political arena with more work to do to highlight the power of the Asian American vote.
The community recognized that elections are extremely important to those things that they cared about.
But also to amplify the power of representation.
And when we say the power of the Asian American vote, we should note that considerable power lies within the Chinese community, who represent 180,000 of the nearly 300,000 residents in the city's AAPI community. That power was on display earlier this year in February before the new lunar year. Mayor London Breed proposed putting a homeless center in Chinatown near the North Beach border. The mayor received backlash from the Chinese community, and considering it was before the Lunar New Year and an election year, she backed down. On the peninsula, Asian American communities will play a big role in the hotly contested race to replace Congresswoman Anna Eshoo. The district includes parts of San Mateo and Santa Clara counties, which are 33% and 41% Asian American, respectively. Be sure to watch our special Roots and Resilience and AAPI celebration on Friday at 4 p.m. on KPIX and streaming right here on CBS News Bay Area. Coming up, looking back on an artist's legacy, the prolific yet little-known Bay Area man getting an honor right here in San Francisco.
It was a beautiful weekend here in the Bay Area, and as we kick off this work week, we're staying nice and dry. We're staying low in those rain chances as we head into this work week's forecast. A little bit breezier into the afternoon hours like we'll notice today, but the weather is warm and it is dry all throughout the bay. Wind gusts along our shoreline anywhere up to around 25 to 30 miles per hour are expected, close to around that 3 o'clock hour as many of us are wrapping up work and school. It'll be a bit breezy in case you want to head out to the park, so just keep that in mind, but at least the weather is beautiful and definitely warm too in our inland areas. We're expecting 70s today, just like yesterday, with 50s and 60s along our coastline. Cooler and breezier along the coast near Pacifica, but those winds start to die down the more inland we go. Antioch today topping off at 80 degrees. Let's head over to San Francisco real fast, where we had beta breakers over the weekend, and it was beautiful. It was mild, and we have 60s in the forecast once again. All the way north along the Golden Gate Bridge, a similar trend, 60s turning into 70s from Santa Rosa up into Windsor. You continue to move north, suddenly we hit the 80s in areas like Ukiah all the way over into Lakeport.
It's one of San Francisco's biggest events of the year. Thousands of people took over the streets for beta breakers yesterday, and while some participants are competitive runners, the majority show up in costumes, some crazy, some fun. And yes, some people opt to show up in nothing at all. Yes, saw a lot of naked runners yesterday. We caught up with a pair of runners who made it out to the coop for the event.
This is our 4th year as chickens. 2 of our flags didn't come this year, but we made it. And Maria's our newest chicken.
More than 21,000 people signed up for the 7-mile run this year. That's 7.5, by the way, 12K. San Francisco is celebrating the life and work of a prolific yet little-known artist with a special exhibit at the public library. Max Darrow spoke with Ralph Shesay's son about what this means to their family and gives us a look at some of his finest work, which you may have seen on KPIX a few decades ago.
On the second floor of San Francisco's iconic Coit Tower, there's a mural by Ralph Shesay, an artist with a quiet but long-lasting legacy, one of a Renaissance man, involving painting, printing, sculpture, murals, and puppets.
This is a Ralph Shesay production.
In the 1950s, Shesay was the main creator of the children's TV show called Brother Buzz, which aired on KPIX.
He built all the puppets, he acted. He wrote all the scripts.
That's Ralph's son, Bruce. He's here in the city as the San Francisco Public Library unveils a 3-month exhibit to honor his father, showcase some of his best work, and highlight his unique and under-recognized place in San Francisco's history.
How does it feel to have this exhibit in San Francisco, really to honor your father?
Well, it's been 75 years and coming, so I'm very happy that it's fun to hear.
Some of the puppets that helped make Brother Buzz the hit show that it was are on display at the exhibit, and one of them even made a return to the KPIX studios.
The Grandpappy Woodmouth.
Grandpappy Woodmouth. Tell us about this man.
From the show, and he was a central ongoing character in the show, and it was very important for Brother Buzz to converse with.
I think if we spent more time learning to understand one another instead of laughing at each other and making fun, the world would be a better place to live in.
Brother Buzz was a busy bee who taught children about kindness, good manners, and so much more.
It was the first program that dealt with the environment and with kindness to animals.
We're looking for an aquatic mammal. Have you seen one around?
And the interesting thing about my father is that he knew nothing about animals.
Your father was an artist.
Yes. And he had to research all it, but
Shesay truly had a deep connection to San Francisco. His wide range of work was appreciated by many for decades. Bruce is proud of his father's legacy and touched by the San Francisco Public Library's gesture.
I'm just very delighted. And my former partner has already seen the exhibit, and she says it's just really tremendous, so I'm looking forward to seeing it.
The legacy of a Renaissance man who spent the majority of his life contributing to Bay Area culture that continues to live on.
Well, Ralph died in 1991. If you'd like to learn more about him, the free exhibit is located at the San Francisco Main Library on Larkin Street. It will be on display until August 18th. Well, thanks for streaming CBS News Bay Area. I'm Ryan Yamamoto. We'll be right back with the First Alert forecast and a look at your top stories. shot by San Jose police. It happened while officers were responding to a call about someone firing a gun in the Colmar Drive yesterday afternoon. No officers were injured. SJPD will hold a press conference at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi has died in a helicopter crash in northwestern Iran due to bad weather. That crash also killed the country's foreign minister. The vice president will assume the presidency, with a new election expected within 50 days. Teaching assistants, tutors, and other student workers at UC Santa Cruz are planning to strike today. They say it's in response to the university's crackdown on pro-Palestinian demonstrators. The school says the planned strike is illegal. The Bay Area's only primetime newscast at 8 and 9 p.m. on the all-new Pix Plus 44 Cable 12. I'm Ryan Yamamoto. This is
Well, we are coming out of a beautiful weekend here in the Bay Area. Lots of things happened throughout the Bay. Of course, Beta Breakers was beautiful for that forecast. Sunny skies into the afternoon hours. And we're seeing the same as we head into this week. Small day-to-day changes. It's more summer-like as we kick off this week with 70s and 80s in our inland areas. We'll see small day-to-day changes in the forecast for us. But better yet, let's dive straight into our Monday forecast. Cooler and cloudier along the coast, but we'll see plenty of sunshine into this afternoon throughout the Santa Clara Valley with 70s in the forecast for us today. If you live in areas like San Jose stretching up into Fremont, it cools down just a little bit the more north you go, but then it warms up the more east we go in areas like Antioch and Brentwood. Nice and warm for us this afternoon with 80s in the forecast today. Let's head all the way over across the Bay Bridge into the heart of San Francisco, where we're also expecting 60s this afternoon. Along that coastline, it cools down just a smidge more into communities like Stinson Beach, and all the way up into the North Bay we go. Beautiful, warm, dry weather for us as we head into this afternoon. It will be a little bit gustier, though, as we head into the afternoon hours. Advancing the clock all the way to dinner time, even close to 3 o'clock, we're noticing that onshore wind with gusts anywhere up to around 30 miles per hour. Notice how that continues to be the same trend into the evening hours tonight. Breezy along the coast, lighter winds in our inland areas, but let's take a look at the next 7 days. Lots of sunshine in the forecast for us, especially if you live anywhere from San Francisco across the Bay Bridge into Oakland, with just some partly cloudy skies, mostly in the morning hours. It'll be warm, it will be dry as we head all along our week's forecast in our inland East Bay, but notice how these 80s turn into 60s by the weekend. Like I said, small day-to-day changes are in the forecast for us. Cooler conditions by the weekend, and we'll also notice that in areas like the North Bay all the way over into San Jose. Upper 70s for now, turning into upper 60s as early as Saturday, averaging out into the 70s by early next week.
Well, cities, counties, and states across the country are waiting for the Supreme Court to rule on a case that would allow them to clear homeless encampments, even if there's nowhere else for those people to go. San Francisco city leaders have been fighting for the right to clear out encampments as a matter of health and safety. New numbers show the city's homeless population now stands at just over 8,300. That's up 7% from 2022. The good news, it appears more people are in shelters, but the number of people living on the streets or in tents dropped 13%. The so-called point-in-time count is done every 2 years and determines how much funding the city gets from the federal government.